I'd like to invite Augustine Blay, who's the Chief of Staff of the Vice President. I'd like to invite the Honourable Vincent Sowah, who's the Deputy Minister for Communications. Dr. Mohammed Suni, who's the Board Chairman of NITA, the government's regulator. Doris? There we go. Doris Ampadu-Ameyaw, who's the head of IT for the Registrar General's office. And finally, Moses Baiden, who is the Chief Executive of Margins Group. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all very much for taking the time, and thank you very much to Tech in Ghana for inviting us. I think what this panel is going to try and do is essentially remove some of the myths associated with what the government is doing and allow you to have direct contact with those who are responsible for the overarching policies that the government is making. To my mind, what the government is trying to do is to provide the basic infrastructure that allows the whole technology sector to function and to flourish. As introduced earlier on, my name is Tutu, Agare, and I'm the managing partner of Nubuke Investments. We're an investment and advisory company, been around for about over 10 years, and we spend all of our time either helping investors raise money or helping those who wish to come into country to invest. We're Pan-African, and we do a lot of advisory work, and we do quite a bit of advisory work for a number of different government agencies. So I'd like to think by the end of the 50 minutes that we have, you'll have a better sense of the overarching strategy of the government, and you'll have a better sense of some of the specific policies that are in place that will enable yourselves to be able to, I guess, work a lot more efficiently. We intend to, between ourselves, talk for about half an hour, 35 minutes, and then we'll open it up to about 15 minutes of Q&A, because as has been said earlier, the Q&A is particularly important. So I'm going to ask all of our panelists to speak briefly. I'm quite aggressive when it comes to timing, so we don't have long political broadcasts. I would actually like to do this in a sequence. I would like to start with Augustine, who, as we all know, the Vice President is the chairman of the economic management team and has been very much responsible for essentially driving the economy and the journey that we're on, of technology journey, which is significantly more overarching than the Ministry of Communications. I think Augustine's been at his right-hand side. So I'd like, if you don't mind, Augustine, to speak for about 5 minutes on where we're going with all of this. What exactly is the overarching strategy?
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the audience. I would like to acknowledge the Honorable Minister of Communication. I'm excited to be here. The first thing we want to understand is that technology needs an infrastructure, the base pillars that have to be in place. And the base is not just the hardware, you also need the software and the people skills. The Honorable Minister mentioned education, where we're going to focus on adding STEM to the encoding to the curriculum. We all understand that brains, right, as child, is just like a sponge. It absorbs a lot of things. So what you throw at them at the early stage, they'll just build on top of that. So it's very important to understand that education plays a critical component in the digital infrastructure that the government wants to build. The other pillars that the Vice President has been speaking about, I would like to talk, is the first one is the ID. ID, addressing. The fundamental piece in IT is the address, the person, the identity. And all of you have a phone, you have a number. You go beyond that, you have your IP address or some unique thing that identifies your device. And when you want to build technology, bring technology in a society, largely you must be able to uniquely identify a person, not only by the person as an entity, but the location of the person. So we've been working on the national ID margins. We'll speak to that. You also, the Honorable Minister mentioned the digital addressing component where the person lives. I'll give you an example. I had a friend that came from the US 2 weeks ago to visit, and he needed to have a letter sent to him urgently Where I live, I don't have an address. I live in a new area, so I don't have a street name. And I told him to give the digital address of my house to the person in the US. The letter got delivered. These are some of the things that we'll be able to expand upon it as we seek to give a lot more digital entrepreneurs opportunity. So ID, addressing. Then you have the payment system. I saw Asoriba had a very wonderful presentation. In the center of it is the payment of tithe, right? So to be able to pay from your bedroom and any other places that you are quickly and interchange. That platform, the exchange platform, must also exist. So the platform is being working on. Technically, it's done. We are working through the policy and other things to have it launched in the near future. So first, the identity of the person. Second is the address of the person. Third is the payment interoperability that must exist. Of course, you have the telcos and others. Once you have these in place, the rest is the data, right? The data, each agency, each ministry, each sector deals with data, and the data then must flow. And I have this term of, don't just look for the data, but then look for the number of the data. You have the presentation by Soroba showing about 2.6 billion people, 100 churches, thousands of places. These are the numbers that the data must generate. Once you begin to chase the data, you will have a lot more opportunity to impact the world. Population growth, I was reading the document that said by 2020, you're going to have each person will generate about 5,200 gigabytes of data, each person. So you look at this country, 27 million, multiplied that by 5,200 gigabytes. It tells me that the data explosion that's about to happen is just a huge opportunity for each of the digital entrepreneurs. If you can just mine 1% of that data, 1% of that data, take the Asoriba data, take your digital addressing data, take your ID address, and mine it and reveal a lot of insight into how the population is exploring or is moving or is working, you can begin to address some of the fundamental problems that we have. So that's it.
Thank you very much indeed. And as per the new administration, bang on time. I would like to then move slightly more into the weeds, as I should say. And I'd like the Honourable Minister to talk in a little bit more detail about some of the policies of the ministry that will help build this infrastructure that our tech entrepreneurs in this room are looking to build upon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think once my minister has spoken, I'll just have to add a bit to what she said. I'm sure we are all aware that to build a whole ecosystem where we take advantage of technology, we have to build infrastructure, accessibility, security, and also to ensure that we create an enabling environment to build apps and ensure that we roll out ICT-enabled products. In terms of infrastructure, as a government, we have apart from the data center that we provided, we have the fiber optics in the whole eastern part of the country. We've closed the loop which runs from Ho all the way up to the north. We've now tried to connect it from Ho to Accra to the data center at the Ministry of Communication and the NITA to ensure that we provide the basic infrastructure. And we are also looking at the Western Corridor and also extending infrastructure to the oil fields to ensure that across the country we provide the infrastructure that will provide the backbone on which all the technology and the products that we are trying to enable roll out. In terms of connectivity, as a government, we're trying to ensure, and as my minister said, to provide access to underserved and then the unserved areas. In line with this, we're trying to set up community information centers across all the various districts where we provide basic IT literacy access as e-centers for the community. Also, they provide centers for those who want to access the kind of the public products and to bring efficiency to public services and bring the services right to the doorsteps across all the people in the country. My minister mentioned that how can the person in Paga be part of the digital ecosystem? How can they ensure that they are also enjoying and being part all these products that we are rolling out, all these issues, so we roll out EID, the digital addressing systems, and also to ensure that all the products of like e-procurement, e-immigration, the e-government, how can we bring it to a doorstep? We need connectivity. And that's what we're trying to do. This year, the ministry, in collaboration with the private sector as a policy, we're trying to bring the private sector to help in this accessibility. So private sector with MTN under the auspices of GIFEC. We are trying to provide connectivity to 200 communities across the country. And we have other concurrent or parallel projects to ensure that we increase accessibility. We come to security, of cyber security. We all know that my colleague who just talked about data. We know that our systems, our network, and our data, once we live in a connected world, are exposed to threats. And so we've rolled out the National Cyber Security Strategy. We've come up with an institutional framework to ensure that the governance structure, and we are looking at our whole cyber architecture, our defense architecture, to ensure that all these products that we are rolling out, all the issues that people are bringing, I'm sure since we roll out the national ID and the digital address system, we've been hearing in the public how people are talking about how secure the data they are providing and the data that will be provided, how safe would it be. And as we roll out and as we keep working this network environment, the issues of our cyber security will be key. As a government, the Minister of Communication has issued directives where all government agencies must use the NITA domain instead of using public email systems. Would also Minister has issued a directive to ensure that ICT products, both software, hardware, before they are procured, they go through NITA to ensure standardization and to ensure that all the products that we provide are quite secured. We've not left out the private sector. This sort of facility that we provided here in the Accra Digital Center that provides a plug-and-play system for the private sector to take advantage of that. We are going to roll out others where we intend to open up a technology and industrial park, one in the Greater Accra region, and that will be followed up with one in the Ashanti region, to also provide additional things to the private sector to ensure that all the young guys who are here, the entrepreneurs, we provide incubation and then computer labs, and to ensure that the private sector also have a stake and the government supports them. We have moved on also to ensure that the government rolls out a lot of ICT-enabled products. And we are not just providing infrastructure. The EID, the paperless systems, clearing system at the port, the digital address system, and smart workplaces across the government to ensure that we so that the applications, and before I forget, we talk about interoperability. There are a lot of disparate databases across the government sectors, and we ensure that we are going to put the system in place. So all the systems will not be working in silos, they'll be communicating with each other. So once you have your unique ID system, you go to DVLA, go to Births and Deaths Registry, you'll be able to instantly check. So we really want to encourage the citizenry and all of us here to support this effort that we are doing to ensure that we develop this digital economy and ensure that we're also part of the smart world to make our lives better and to ensure that all the investment that government is putting on becomes worthwhile. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that was particularly insightful as far as what the government is doing in order to set the base for us to work. And you mentioned a couple of things around the regulatory environment, the standardization, and you mentioned NITA a few times. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd love for you to expand a little further on what is being done at NITA to ensure that there is standardization to allow for interoperability in your space.
Thank you very much. I acknowledge the presence of our minister here. NITA, as we all know, is the implementing arm of the Ministry of Communication. And it was set up by Act 771 with two principal roles. One, to be a service provider to public sector, and also to regulate the industry. But we positioning NITA in a situation that we are not going to be in competition, but we are going to be in co-opetition. And by that, we're going to compete and collaborate with the various sectors. So you may have heard the mention of the Ghana eGovernment interoperability framework. Mm-hmm. Now, that is supposed to set up the standards, regulations, and rules that will guide the deployment of technologies across board. Several instances we hear of various technologies being deployed, but these deployments are being guided by this framework. For one reason, if you have several databases across in silos, we run the risk of integrity. So we're working together to harmonize all these databases to come up with a common database. And importantly, once the infrastructure is put in place, see, if you have a road network and you don't have vehicles running on those networks, what is the use of the road network? So what we're trying to promote is to the deployment of applications to facilitate the deliverance of services by government, and also to facilitate promote the industry. And the low-lying fruit is the software industry. You've heard of Asuriba. What are the standards that we need to put in place that companies like Asuriba will be globally competitive, right? You may have heard of the capability maturity model, which was developed by the Software Engineering Institute of Carnegie Mellon University. In South Africa, Johannesburg Center for Software Engineering is promoting the industry to build 1,000 workforce that are CMMI rated. Now, if we have to compete globally, our software companies have to be CMMI rated. And that's one of the challenges that we are going to take up. Secondly, we want the softwares to be of a certain quality, right? So what we're working around is to try to come out of an outfit that will do software testing and quality assurance across board. Once you are going to deploy software in this country, it has to go through that process. You've heard of Ghana Energy Commission, which is certifying those who are doing electrical wiring. What are we doing to our network people? Very often the North, when a project is being given out to build an intelligent building like this place, the network aspect is lumped up with the electrical cabling. And that shouldn't be the case. There are two different professions, right? So we have to come out with standards, certification processes, working in collaboration with our university systems, because they do the training, most of the training, but we need them to do the training according to the needs of industry and government. So we have to work, and that's why we talk about the triple helix model, which is bringing together government, industry, and R&D and universities working together to come out with innovative product. And if we are able to do that, then we're positioning Ghana, as the minister said, to be able to deliver to the whole sub-region. So if we have to be the hub, then we have to position ourselves strategically. We have to build our capabilities to be able to make the journey from the analog to the digital space. We need leadership, digital leadership. And digital leadership goes with collaboration. So we want to see all the ministries and departments collaborating, coming together. I was just discussing with Augustine this morning, some kind of a peer review, a forum, where we all come together and look at each and every one of us, what we are doing. And we do it in academia. If I write a paper, there's usually a blind review. I give it to somebody to review it, or if somebody elsewhere in the world, just so that we ensure that the outcome of that meets certain standards and quality, because we are preparing ourselves to compete globally.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And at least now we have a better sense of the framework which is there. And it's an enabling framework. It's one to ensure that over time we can all compete globally. Now, the Registrar General's office is an area where I know some people roll their eyes when it comes to trying to set up a company, trying to get things done. And if I can be so bold, the most recent Doing Business in Ghana Index highlighted this as one of the issues. But I know there's some very exciting things happening which will enable us to move the way we go about putting our companies on the map of the 21st century. So please, Mrs. Ameyaw, if you could please enlighten us a little.
Yeah. I deem it an honor to be part of the discussion to highlight the successes that has been chalked by Registrar General in his digital transformation journey. Now, Registrar General, as we all know, people have their own perception about Registrar General. They have their own stories about Registrar General, how we do our business, how we go about things in the Registrar General's department. In the not distance past, Registrar General used to operate a manual system which was associated with delays and several inefficiencies. But with the intervention of the government of Ghana and NITA in July 2004, there was this intervention that helped us to decentralize our services. Well, we now had about 4 of our services rendered in 4 regional capitals. Notwithstanding that, we were able to do searches within a minute, name search. In time past, when you come, if you want to do a search, just a name search, we have to go through a heap of Fusca book, going through to find out whether the name is available or not. We've passed that stage. Now, with the intervention of the World Bank and the government of Ghana, in partnership with GCNet, they've introduced this GGov project. And the objective of this project is to modernize RGD in order to improve our services and then increase revenue generation. This has also been done. And the recent one that we did was the introduction of the portal, which was one of the deliverables under the GGov project. It was implemented in 2015, but we were having few challenges. And by God's grace, these challenges have been resolved. And we've introduced this e-registrar, e-certificate, and then e-shop on the portal, where now a portal user can go there. You can have an end-to-end business registration. You start and end there, have your certificates at the click of a button when your application is approved. You can generate your own certificate, generate your own profile, e-profile, and then use it as and when as needed. And we think we've created this environment, a conducive environment for investors, to attract investors into this country to help improve or grow our economy. As we speak now on the portal, you can do a search. If an investor wants to have a partner, you can do a search on our portal to know which company is registered, who can I partner with, without going through stress. At the comfort of your home, you can just get onto our portal, use a feature called eShop, log in, create an account, log in, and then search for company that you want. You can list a whole lot of companies that you want to know the directors, the shareholders that you want to partner with. You can do this at ease, knowing very well that ease of doing business starts with Registrar General. That is why the government of this country has really an eye on us to make sure we improve on our service delivery. And thank God we are there. That now, no need coming to Registrar General. You can sit at the comfort of your home, in your offices. You can register your business. We have all the 6 types of categories on the portal. You can register your sole prop company limited by share guarantee, all that. You can file your returns. You can do your changes. You can do your amendment, everything on the portal without necessarily coming to Registrar General's department.
Thank you very much indeed. I must admit that I've actually learned something new. I didn't realize you could do that. And having, with my partners here, gone through a couple of business registrations and a couple more to come, I know we'll be doing it from the comfort of our office. The identification of Ghanaians is probably one of the biggest perennial issues. I think we've been trying to formally identify Ghanaians since we became independent. And we are now seem to be at the cusp. I've seen advertisements in the newspapers for procurement. I've seen emergency acts being passed in Parliament. I've seen LIs being laid for 21 days. And so it feels as if we're just there. And Moses, we'd like to hear from you the facts behind the myths, behind the rollout, behind the timing, most importantly. When is the average Ghanaian going to be wandering around with something, and what is that something? So over to Moses.
Thank you. Hello. This work. Hello. The turn on.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tutu. First of all, let me thank the Honorable Minister for a very strong message about government being very determined to support local enterprise. I think it's a step in the right direction. At the end of the day, the private sector, when we wake up, we think about profit. In order to be profitable, we have to be efficient. And we cannot afford to deploy capital that then comes back with a deficit or is lost. Our stakeholders expect us to be efficient. So in the PPP construct, with a progressive government and a framework which is a vision pointing to a destination, the private sector working with the public sector is bound to deliver robust solutions that reach the end objective. And so, having said that, back to the EID. As you know, Margins has been involved in identity for 27 years. So we have a remarkable journey in the identity space. Anybody and everybody in this country, I think has at least at one time had 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 of our IDs. But identity has evolved. And as the Chief of Staff for the Vice President has said, if we can't identify people, how do we plan? I mean, all our policies are based on knowing who we are serving. So the population, the demographics, and what we need to give to the people is all based on knowing what numbers there are. Again, coming back to your point on numbers. Without numbers, planning is ineffective. So to give an example, let's say a school feeding program. People in JSS and SSS are going to have a school feeding program. How many people are there? What are their ages? What do they age? What is the budget? Is it going to be sufficient? Can we plan and know in advance there's going to be a deficit? And you can extend this to all segments of the economy. Therefore, it means that a database that captures unique IDs with a unique number that's connected to all the data fields that we collect in all public and private enterprises, all the data fields, and connected to biometrics, then assures us that we know that people are who they claim they are, and we can transfer to these people the rights, duties, obligations, and privileges that's associated with their citizenship or their residency in this country. If we do that, in the old world, we will then go about delivering manually their whatever they are entitled to them. But in the new world, as we digitize, it gives us the opportunity not to only have a physical ID, which you just see with security features, as we used to do 27 years ago, but an electronic ID, which also has the capacity to connect to an eGovernment platform and an e-commerce platform. Now, as long as you have a digital avatar, it means that you can now take your digital form and now you can transcend in the cyberspace securely. So we must know, even in your digital avatar status, that you are who you claim you are. So how do we do that? On the national ID card as we have it, we have 128K of memory. To give you a comparison, national insurance card is 2K, and so that's so many times bigger. So you can see how many applications you can put on. On that digital, on that smart card, we have a digital certificate, which is what you call an X509 digital certificate, which enables us to know that you're connected to a particular site securely, and you cannot be hacked, and you exchange certificates on your hardware, your middleware, on the site, both on the eGovernment and eGovernment site. So you can start and complete a transaction securely. So what do we have on the national ID? We have a match on card technology, which means that you can match on the card your identity without connecting to the internet. And the resultant timestamped verification can be transferred to an application. We have a passport, we have an EID application, which is your digital avatar, and today the national health insurance is going to be on it. There are other 14 applications getting across from SNAID to everybody else can be on the card, but that interoperability is taking time. Once we establish an identity that you can see, and once we establish a digital identity that you can verify with a public infrastructure, that is also a certificate authority, which is controlled by NITA with a sub-database as NIA. We can then synchronize all those databases with one single number, one real identity, and one digital identity. So that's how you then deploy on an e-commerce platform and an eGovernment platform.
So I'm going to ask you one follow-up question there. I think one of the things that's very unique about this card is we're doing more than most, and linking this. So a couple of follow-up questions I have. One is when, because we know the how, we know the what. When do you expect most Ghanaians, when do you start and when do you finish?
Okay, you saw on the 15th that we gave the president a life card. I read that the card was printed somewhere. The card was actually made right here in Ghana. I mean, we have the biggest facility in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa for the production of secure documents, including secure cards. So the system is technically ready.
When?
It's been ready since 15 September. I'm coming to a point. You saw on Friday that the National Identity Act was amended. The reason why it was amended is to give effect to some court decisions that have been made, and also to take away all the breeder documents, which can be used to build false identities, which would then start bringing us back to the same position that we were in before, in that we can't determine that people are who they claim they are. A big part of fraud, both in the old world and the new digital world, is based on people assuming identities that they don't have. So there's a legal process to clean all that. The act has gone through. The LI is going to be laid in Parliament. It will run for 21 days. And today the contract is ready. We're doing value for money. We're negotiating how the private sector and the public sector are going to work effectively, and to ensure that matters of privacy, security that are enshrined by our law are protected. Some parts of the original public-private partnership have changed because the government has decided that the Ghana government must own the central site assets. These assets were previously being financed by us, so we've had to transfer it. So we expect that by the end of the year we should start. The process to start is not a technical issue. It's a legal process. The right thing must be done. We should have started on Monday, and we are ready to start on Monday. But we have to make sure that all the processes are above board, the contractual processes stand the test of time, and all the elements of transparency, objectivity, value for money, and the longevity of the contract and balance of risk are properly appraised by all the relevant bodies. And these are a lot of people, including Parliament, Cabinet, PPAC, and maybe 14 other institutions. In fact, the process has involved more than 500 people. So we will start before the end of the year. But I dare say that when I look at the timelines for all these approvals, we should start in earnest after the Christmas period across the country and finish in 10 months. So your answer is that yes, technically we're ready. Everything is tested, is working as I've described it. Legally, we have legal time constraints imposed by the Constitution and the legal processes, which we have to observe. So the answer to your question is, we will start before the end of the year. We'll be in full flight from 2018.
and it's about 10 months. So I'm just trying to make sure that people...
It's programmed to be...
all of you
take
out there
7
who are looking to build infrastructure around the national ID, start building now, because you've only got 10 months before we go live. Augustine, I'd just like to ask you a question before I open up to the floor. In terms of the impact that you believe this will have on the management of the economy, do you want to give us some highlights before I open the questions up? Because you obviously work for the Vice President who's responsible for the economic management team, so...
All right. We have to look at 2 areas. The first one is the service delivery. You see that as people expect services, we need roads, we need water, we need ECG, we need electricity, we need all these services need to be provided by government. With funds from the budget and stuff like that. One area that I'm sure most of you have heard is the port efficiency, where paperless port, where by introducing process review, going paperless, we then increase the revenue of the customs, and then at the same time brings money into the coffers of government to do more projects. So looking at what the government seeks to do is to keep improving on efficiency and then also positively impacting the revenues of government, so that we don't have to always be restricted. We have to be efficient as we seek to move the country forward. One, we are restricted by money. We don't have enough money. The Minister of Communication mentioned that she's going to be creative in addressing some of the challenges that she has, and every sector has that. And then from private sector, I'm now challenging the private sector that when you have an ID that will be done in 10 months, say end of 2018, you have a digital address, because when you go for an ID, you must have a digital address. And so by the end of 2018, each Ghanaian will have an ID card, each Ghanaian will have an address check, each Ghanaian will be able to then pay regardless of the telecom or the banking or the and to exchange money electronically, check. Now what is left to do is now to kind of get the engine going, to get the entrepreneurs to say, now how can I help ECG collect its revenue quickly and easily and cheap at less cost? How can I get Ghana Water to do the same thing? How can I get STC to get their customers can I get STC to have insight into the passengers that come in and out of its stations? So we begin to look at all the different opportunities. The Registrar General, for example, is doing a lot of great things. You know, when the Vice President went there, he said they were the first agencies that he visited and put a lot of attention on what the Registrar General was doing. So what we are seeking to do now, we're saying that when you move into 2019, once all these are in place, what are all the opportunities for efficiencies and revenue increase? And this is where I think the entrepreneurs might begin to think and help the government and the private sector strive.
Okay. Yeah. I have one last question for the Minister for Communications. You've talked about the link between, or we've heard about the link between the address and the ID. What about the mobile phone and the payment, the actual payment system? Do you expect these to be linked particularly soon? Are we working with the telcos to do that so that, the holy grail is putting the ID, the mobile money account, and the address together. Is that an expectation? Because that, I think, is then multiples of opportunities for the entrepreneurs in the room.
Oh, definitely. We expect all these. What the ID system provides is a platform. And apart from that, it's a key infrastructure and an opportunity for all for people, the citizen, to take advantage of that. We expect the mobile industry to follow suit. To take advantage of that. As Augustine has said, it is important that people realize what these ID system, the opportunity it provides. Apart from providing the efficiency, apart from providing both the public sector, it provides an ecosystem of a multiplier effect which will cut across the whole sectors of the economy. As we sit here, we heard our colleague from Registrar General how technology is aiding in the development of business, and the same thing will happen in the mobile sector, for them to take advantage and see how the ID system can help. We've been hearing people talking about theft in the in the fintech, how mobile money. I'm sure when it comes to registration of SIMs, it is key. The national ID will help in to ensure that people will not use fake ID systems to just call people and assume the identity, and to ensure that people are not victims of thefts or victims, and their monies are not stolen. So this will help a lot in expanding the telecommunication services that we all enjoy. I think that the lack of an ID has affected a lot of the confidence people have in the telecommunication industry. I think so. What this will provide is very crucial in the telecom industry.
Okay. Thank you very much to all my panelists. I'm going to open the floor up for questions. And I think what you've heard here is a government who's looking to provide an ecosystem for entrepreneurs to benefit from. I think you've heard some detail on what that ecosystem looks like, and more importantly, you've been given timelines. So we'd like to open the floor to a few questions. No party political broadcasts, no display of how well you know and understand the industry. Identify yourself, quick question. If it's specific to somebody, please say so, and you get an answer pretty quickly. I'll take 3 questions first, and then we'll go back for more. Hands up if you want to talk. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry.
Hello. I think one area that's where most people, I'm sure, are concerned about is about data protection in the collection of personal data and biodata. We have, as a government, we've come with the Data Protection Act, which ensures that collectors of data, including the NIA and the Ghana Post, all those collecting data, to ensure that the data is collected in a manner prescribed by law to ensure privacy, to ensure that the data is collected, is stored in a secured manner, so that people should not be so apprehensive that the personal data or what they upload in the production of these services will be under threat. The data protection is going to ensure that even government agencies who collect data and are collected in a manner to assure everybody that their data that they provide is secured, and that's part of the infrastructure that we are providing. In addition to that, the Data Protection Agency is going to go to all these agencies to train people on site about how to handle the data that they collect, and to ensure that, for example, we all get unsolicited mails or texts from telecommunication industries. All these things are going to be corrected by the Data Protection Agency, so that the privacy of people in trying to access this public infrastructure and these services is ensured, and the integrity of the data to ensure that we are able to use these services with all the confidence to promote the development of the economy.
Okay, thank you. Questions? I'll go back to some people, but I'll just, there's one here. Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is David Pra. I want to ask the Deputy Minister, possibly you've outlined a lot of vision for this government, and I want to know how all these things will play in the creation of job opportunities for the youth, which is very critical, and at least the government has espoused a lot of vision as far as youth employment issues are concerned. But how are we going to take advantage of all the digital advancement to ensure that the youth are gainfully employed to help in the growth of the economy?
Thank you. One question. There we go.
My name is Foster. It's a great privilege to be here discussing and sharing information about how we want to make the world a better place. My most interest lies in how user-centered the framework we sit to discuss is we are designing something for citizens to use. Considering the learning curve, how is government or how are players in this ecosystem going to make the learning curve smooth enough for adaptability from the grassroots? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we have one more question, please, and then we'll go to the panel. There's one over here. Some hand raised over here.
I'm Asantoye Adomboachi. I'm with the NCA. My question goes to Moses. You said that legally there are constraints when it comes to the national ID. So my question is, the ID card that was given to the president, is it legal or it was just for the launch of the program? Because if Parliament had not approved and all legal matters had not been sorted, then I dare say the card the president has is not correct. Will you give him another card when you have all legal matters sorted?
Okay, we had three questions. I think the first question is to the Deputy Minister on job creation.
First of all, as my minister mentioned, the long-term objective is to create sustainable human resource capacity that would ensure that the population are involved in not just the consumption, but are part of the development and produce IC-enabled products. So the CICs and the coding thing that my minister spoke about is the first step to begin to build a base where the youth will be exposed to the basics of coding, where they'll be able to develop apps which will be beneficial not to the immediate economy, but they also be equipped with the skills where they can set up businesses which would they be able to, we can export. The CICs also provide, as I said, like a district hub where entrepreneurs can go, people can go to be able to engage on the digital journey. They can browse, they can be able to develop and use the internet to develop their skills, employable skills, and then they can move forward. We have centers like these, the Accra Digital Center, which is a world-class center that will provide co-working spaces for those who want to come in. They'll provide spaces for BPOs who are going to employ. Actually, this center was located here to be able to provide employment to the catchment area around this Circle, New Town area for the youth who want to, the startups and the youth who want to engage in the ICT. Apart from that, we are going to build a technology park in the Greater Accra, somewhere in Dawa, and one also in the University of Ghana, to ensure that those who are in this space, the startup, the youth, will be employed, will be able to acquire skills, the labs, to develop their apps. As my colleague from the Vice President Office said, once this infrastructure are put in place, it provides a growth ecosystem where those who will be equipped with these skills will be able to see opportunities in the whole economy. Apart from the very small direct employment opportunities that will provide, this provides an opportunity and a whole industry which people can take advantage of. We've mentioned, my minister mentioned those margins providing the NID. We've mentioned the company from Dansoman, who are all locally based. In all these things that they are engaged on this journey, they are going to provide opportunities and they're going to employ people in this IT space. So the whole strategy is to build a framework, build the ecosystem, the foundation, and that will begin to show up and to bring up opportunities for those who be able to provide for people to take advantage of that and develop skills for the whole employment in the economy.
Thank you.
Into it. From the private sector perspective, let me answer the legality of the capital. You have, I'm sure most of you have heard of the mainframe, this big computer that was behind, very big. When they started moving to the PC, there was this move that the mainframe was going to be outmoded. Nobody would need the mainframe any longer. Then it moved from PC to laptops, then laptops to mobile phones. At every generation, people were saying that the previous technology will be outmoded. Nobody will use it again. But mainframe are actually still being used, right? The New York Stock Exchange, big insurance companies in the US, big financial companies still use mainframes. The point is that the technology that is needed to maintain and update these is very old, but it's still being used today. And you have a lot of people moving to the new technology. So there's shortage of people with skills to maintain these old technologies that still exist. Right, I'm speaking from a private sector perspective. He addressed the public sector. So there's an opportunity for people out there to say, okay, how many companies are out there and then still need COBOL developers? And people are still need COBOL developers. They can't find them, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, it's an opportunity. Go out there in UK, in Europe, US, and find out you're going to be able to provide skill set, train people here and send them over. Then you move into the future. You're going to have a lot of data generated. Now, the skill set that people are looking for now is data scientists. So somebody who can look at data, identify patterns. But then with that comes the ability to visualize the data. Not only do you have like thousands, a lot of numbers, and be able to represent it in a way that's easily consumable, right? It's also a skill that is going to come in apparent. So like I said before, we have about 5,200 gigabytes of data generated per person a year. So if you multiply that, there's going to be huge data out there that people that can easily analyze and quickly present it in a way that can be easily digested by the decision makers. Will begin to have a lot of contracts, a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunities. So let's look out there. And then the last thing I will say, with my friends, we laugh at each other. We say, well, you did maths in college. Bachelor's in maths and master's in maths. What do you end up doing? We just laugh at them. They don't have any. But actually now, with the data science movement, many of these high-paying jobs are all for data scientists. So you begin to look at your friends who are maths majors who are actually there looking for opportunities. Tell them to pick up a computer, look through big data and data visualization online, and upgrade their skill set. They will get a lot of contract from that perspective.
Okay. As we're running out of time, we got 2 quick responses here.
Yeah.
Moses with one and I'll respond to the other.
Thank God I'm a lawyer. That's a difficult question. But just to treat the legal questions first. The 5 big central subsystems for the national ID have been transferred to NIA. NIA itself has a limited amount of mobile registration workstations and printers. So even though the contract is finalized and is being analyzed on several bases, the equipment that was used to issue the card to the president, even though built and integrated by managers, actually belongs to NIA. So it doesn't need a contract to do that. That's the legal answer. Now, the technical answer is that because we're still in test mode on 15 September, the card that was issued to the president is issued for the test system, but it has an actual unique national ID number that belongs to the president. The data belongs to the president. It works just as well as being issued from the live system. But because we have to go live, at the time of going live, we have to transfer the president's data from the test system to the live system, collect his card and reissue it to be the same card and destroy the first one. So that's both the legal answer and the technical one.
Okay. Thank you. I think the final question we had here was a question of engagement and whether all of this has been done in isolation or whether it's been done in collaboration with the community in the room. And I think that's interesting. One area what I know has been talked about but hasn't yet come to fruition is the Chamber for Technology. I mean, that the private sector hasn't organized itself into a chamber which allows it to communicate collectively in one place with the state. The state struggles, not necessarily struggles, but there are lots of little hubs and lots of little entrepreneurs sitting around, some big entrepreneurs, some big companies. But I'm still surprised that this community here hasn't organized itself into one collective voice to be able to face off to the states and make its case appropriately. So I think that's an opportunity or a discussion or maybe even a deliverable from this Tech in Ghana conference, that there's a commitment to put together a chamber which can face off to the states. Now I'm being threatened here with time. And so, Mr. NITA Chairman. One
what I wanna
last
say
comment.
See, as we said, NITA is not only for government, but it's also to promote the industry.
Yes.
So we are in discussion with the industry to, first of all, try to come out with an active professional body. Even though there is one, but there's no legal backing, for instance, for it. We don't have any LI backing that professional body, unlike ACCA and all those other bodies. That's one thing we're working together with. Now, that will create an interface between government and industry to discuss issues emanating or related to that. And to add to what has been said, once these things are done, the national ID, the national addressing system, public property addressing system, it opens the floodgates for and opportunities for people to build applications around them. And NITA is going to work. The other arm of the ministry is the Kofi Annan ICT Center, which is into capacity development. Those who don't have that capacity, the skill set, there will be a program that will come out to build the skill set to enable them to participate in this process. Something's already going. You may have heard of the program in Olympiad, and Ghana has been competing on it, right? But we need to boost it up. You may have heard of robotics competition, which is sometimes being run at the Kofi Annan ICT Center. These are all opportunities. And that opportunity is the convergence of technologies. You know, you hear of agriculture informatics. There's convergence between agriculture and computer science or IT, business informatics, culture and heritage and that's a very lucrative area. Culture and heritage informatics, how do we build our digital museums, you know, to preserve our traditions and culture by leveraging technology, sensor technology, for instance, defense informatics, and all those things. So there are lots of opportunities across the board, the spectrum, where those who have the skills can come in and provide the solution. NITA is not going to provide all the solutions, but we will work in collaboration with private sector to come up with relevant solutions. How do we address our perennial school placement challenge other than using this application? We talk about CICs. Can they be learning centers? Can a lecture be given at, say, Wesley Girls, and it will be received across the country? These are all opportunities that we can leverage technology to do. And it is the industry, it's the private sector which is going to be the engine that will generate all these solutions, not the public sector. Thank you.
Well,